Welcome back to SwitchCorner. Today we're going to be taking a look at MX vs ATV All Out on the Nintendo Switch. A game that was quite frankly an utter disaster on the PS4, the Xbox like 2 years ago on release. It had like screen tear, frame rate issues popping, barriers that didn't work, and an assortment of other issues that would honestly take me an entire video to cover. That said, THQ Nordic, they've been hard at work patching this thing up, fixing the issues and making for a game that's very different to its original release date, or at least I hope so. So let's look at it all. Gameplay, frame rate, graphics, audio. Let's see if this one's worth the purchase on the Nintendo Switch. So with that luck, hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family and let's get started. So gameplay in MX vs ATV All Out, I mean, as the name suggests, puts you behind a selection of motocross bikes and ATVs, as well as UTVs, each coming with their own breakdown of specs and modifiable parts. Think the engine, exhaust, tyres, the graphics. The options on these vehicles were always my favourite part of the game, and that stands to this day. Regardless of the vehicle type, though, controls I will say remain largely the same. Accelerate, a stunt attached to the right trigger which can be manipulated with the left stick. Steer, and then you can also lean for tighter turns with the right stick. Found that a little bit weird, honestly, that it impacts things like UTVs. Then of course expect a multitude of camera modes, from the standard third person to zoomed out to first person and cinematic, which I will say is largely useless but looks nice, and I guess that's the goal. For me, first and foremost, these vehicles, they should have all felt different by the vehicle type. For example, jumping and moving the bike in air makes sense, but I don't remember the last time I saw a UTV jump and then the steering wheel would actually turn the vehicle in the air. They have the weight right, it definitely feels heavier, but that really is about it. So for modes, and everything here starts in a hub world. It's a farm-like sandbox where you can basically go crazy just practicing your skills and finding things to do. Nice idea, but I will say it gets dull quickly, and I found myself relying on the pause menu, which gives you quick access to the offense as well as your garage. Offense are broken down like this, so you get series, which are just that. You work through a collection of offense ranging in difficulty for trophies. 17 offense total though, so I'll say it'll keep you busy for some time. Time trial offense then, which is just that, compete for the best time. And then finally single offense. This is where I would put the bulk of the gameplay, and it's broken down by category, so you get Supercross, National, Opencross, Waypoint, which takes advantage of the open world and a few other small sandboxes. Basically you're racing towards checkpoints. Freestyle, that's basically tricks in an arena for points. Free ride, again a sandbox mode, and then finally Arena Cross. So I click in, ready for my first race, and I go immediately to Arena Cross. Honestly, it was the best looking image. I wanted to check it out. Alright, so I select my location and I'm hit immediately with a paywall. This is download only, visit the eShop to make a purchase. That's when I noticed the yellow symbol on the side. Not a single track in this mode is available to play without paying. I visit the other modes, sure it has a standard selection of tracks, but every list starts the same with paid content. I've just paid $40 for this, and the first thing it does is tell me to spend more money, which is honestly kinda an insult to the gamer and practices I do not support. Everyone watching this though, I present to you a DLC nightmare of a game. Right now, a lot of the tracks haven't even been added to the eShop just yet, but I see at least 20 that are missing by my count. At time of recording though, we have 42 pieces of DLC, a ton of vehicles, and then maybe 2 to 4 track packs, totaling $162.58. That is insane, and only the beginning, as clearly a lot is still missing. You have to have some nerve to sell a game at $40, then plaster every single menu first and foremost with DLC, and even include an entire mode that we can't play at all. I wouldn't mind this so much if the game was good, but I can't even say that. The controls are stiff, our biker just barely moves at all, the frame rate's jumping between 25 and 30 at all times, and then the UTVs in particular have this weird issue where it visually feels like there's a frame rate issue, but it's not registering as that, but it's like skipping almost, and there's this slight shift and judder to the image. I think it's a combination, from what I can tell, of the vehicle model changing in size slightly, with the camera causing some issues alongside it. Barriers work now, I'll give it that much. That's a good thing. You can't drive through them anymore like you could on the Xbox, but yeah, they've still missed the overall speed that it should have, the excitement, and then the flexibility these just beast of machines provide its riders. Even the stunts, press the right trigger and watch a canned animation. You just choose a direction on the joystick. It's not exactly, fulfilling. Throw in the fact then as well we see a reduced racer field down from the original 16 to 8 here, and it's cut a lot of corners to join the Switch library. I complain about Monster Energy Supercross nearly every year going from 16 to 12, this one's taking it even a step further. MX versus ATV, it has the foundation, which is basically a wealth of options on the vehicle front, from like 2-stroke to 4-stroke to ATVs, UTVs. The problem is everything else, from controls that are lacking to events that forget the fun or cut too many corners. The most fun you can have here, honestly, jump on an ATV or a UTV and go after the open world checkpoint mode. At that point you might just catch a small glimpse of fun, mainly for me because it reminded me of an old PS2 game called Smuggler's Run that was amazing. The problem is this isn't as good as that, and that's concerning when you factor in that game was released 20 years ago and actually handled a lot of the ideas better. Even then, that small bit of hope destroyed when you click out and realize you paid $40 where half the content is behind a paywall. I mean, breaking it down by event type, Series has 4 DLC events missing, Supercross is missing 5 tracks, Time Trial has 14 DLC tracks, Arena Cross you can't play at all, there's 12 tracks all DLC, and then there's 2 open world DLCs too. That's all before we even come across the huge amount of vehicles that are DLC too. A 2-year-old game now should be a definitive addition, not an excuse to ask us for more cash. It's a joke and an insult that we should not support. The only other modes here, online and local split screen. Online I couldn't test, no one was online, and then local split screen. It's a nice addition, but not enough to get rid of that bad taste in my mouth from DLC City. Graphics then, and it's okay, it's actually a little sharper I found compared to the likes of Monster Energy Supercross, but I don't actually chalk that up as a good thing. Rather, it's a more basic game, there's less detail, and overall I think it's less inspired. The bikers, they look decent enough, as do the tracks, but then they move and they're about as rigid as they come. It's actually impressive how little these bikers move. The most movement you will see here, in fact, when there's like a sign of life, is when you crash and good old ragdoll physics kick in. For me as well, just looking at the tracks, looking at the bikers, they feel too big in comparison to what they're like riding on. The scaling to me is off. Also, I couldn't help but notice the gear and the wind, the jerseys, all that good stuff barely moves at all, and I always like that touch with past entries. Then the open worlds, they're fun to look at and they do give some real variety, I'll give them that, but it's not without popping and a whole lot of it. Really like these areas though, and at least initially I did want to explore them and see kind of, what they had to offer. Overall, visually it's not bad, but it's again kind of like the rest of the package, absolute bare minimum, and the bike's ATV, UTV customization takes the crown here with its visual design. So audio then, and its bike sounds and soundtrack, I didn't really expect any more than that, and having played the game in the past I actually already knew what I was going to be getting into. There's the occasional crash sound or landing and they sound decent enough. Then the engine, gotta say, really like these as the tonality does change and they capture the, the kind of weight of the bike. In the open worlds I would have loved some kind of environmental effects, but there's very little there to speak of. The soundtrack then, probably the best bit of the game, and it feels kind of like the B-sides to a Tony Hawk's entry. Expect The Offspring, Asking Alexandria and My Chemical Romance, who were then supported kind of by a whole lot of lesser knowns, which makes sense, I'd imagine, because of budget constraints. Audio's not bad at all, it's absolutely doing what it needs to. Overall, MX vs ATV All Out is a game that I wanted to like, even back on the Xbox when it first released, and actually now as well, but rarely does a game come along that feels like it achieves so little in the way of creativity. They've stuck an open world in it to make it feel different and attached a few events, but that's really about it. Across the board though, it just feels uninspired. Multiple vehicles, sure, let's make them control in a near identical manner. How about the menus? Let's just slap DLC at the top of every single menu we can find so we can remind them of how they can give us a little bit more cash for a 2-year-old game. Even the events, they lack the intensity you would expect thanks to stunts that are about as unrewarding as they come and a small race field to compete against. I loved MX vs ATV Reflex. That game was incredible and I wish they had just ported that to us instead, because here they've taken a patched game that no doubt is an improvement from the original, but they forgot the biggest problem of them all. The game underneath was never particularly fun to begin with. Today I'm awarding MX vs ATV All Out a bad 3 out of 10. It would have been a 4, but the DLC has really got to me, and as gamers, consumers, we're becoming smarter, and I can't support this model and say it's okay. Imagine buying a Mario game and the first 10 levels you see are all behind some sort of paywall. Not happening. Plus, it's over $150 in DLC already, and it seems They haven't even got to uploading it all to the eShop yet. I'll personally be sticking to Monster Energy Supercross 3, a game that's not perfect, but you know what? It seems a whole lot better after spending some time with this. Thanks for watching. Will you be adding this one to your library? If so, let me know why, please. Maybe I'm missing something about it. Maybe there's an enjoyment factor that's just not kind of hooking me. I love THQ Nordic as a developer. They've released some great games over the years, especially for the Switch. This is just that rare miss that no one wants to see. Hopefully they can get MX vs ATV back to the greatness that I remember from like maybe 10 years ago at this point, or just even port Reflex. I'll buy it in a second. You can take my cash now. You can slap DLC all over it as well. I'll still give you my money. With that then, like a shout out to the patrons who are going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. Helps more than you know, and I truly do appreciate it. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch, as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.